There you
They're
go.
perfect. Okay, Carl. Sorry, I interrupted you. Sorry, buddy.
No,
You were
no,
going to
no,
put
no.
the.
We're good. So I'm just gonna do that, and then at the end, you guys are doing your who watches. Um,
Who we watching?
yeah,
Yep.
I guess is my mute button good? It's working. Then if you all are ready, I'm ready. Jammer, ready?
So ready.
I'll
Let's
point to
do
the
this.
screen.
So ready.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Breaking Geek Radio, the podcast, the flagship international podcast of LRMonline.com, as well as the Genreverse Podcast Network. I am one of your hosts today, Joseph J. Medina, joined by the lovely Brit from Dubai, Danny Bartlett. Hello, Danny.
Good even song to you, sir. I am super stoked about tonight. We've just been chatting. I'm not sure what we'll include, but this has been actually quite fun figuring out what we're going to do. I know you're about to tell the dear listener and the dear viewer what it is, but this has been a fun couple of days as I've been plowing through this stuff. I'm looking forward to this. This is going to be fun.
So I'm sure as we go through it, we're going to pick apart some of my decisions on it, but at the same time, I'm actually shocked at how easy this was. So what I'm referring to and what he's referring to is us rating the entirety of Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is very unique in that it is, of course, the first phase to include television shows or Disney Plus series, streaming series, as it were. So at first, Danny asked me the rightful question, are we going to be doing them separate lists? And I'm like, no, all combined. They're all equally MCU projects, so we are weighing them all the same against each other. But yeah, this has been one heck of a couple of years since the Phase 4 started, which was, I believe, the middle of last year, kicked off with, I think it was Black Widow, if I'm not mistaken. Actually, yes, I should get my list in front of me, which I have it here, just so that I know what the heck I'm talking about here. But
Black
yeah,
Widow
so
was the first movie, WandaVision was the first show.
Yep, exactly. So what I'm going to do really quick is I'm going to just list all of the movies and then list all the TV shows, just so that you know what we're including, because there are a couple things that we are not including. So, and I'll just say what those are right off the bat. We're not including the special Werewolf by Night, and we are not including I Am Groot, the series of Disney Plus shorts.
We also can't technically include Guardians Holiday Special, which is technically part of Phase 4 because it's not out yet.
Yeah, I guess we're not including that. I guess I'm a bit premature, but that's what's new, right? So let me go ahead and list the movies first of all. The Phase 4 of the MCU on the film front consists of Black Widow, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, Eternals, Spider-Man No Way Home, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Thor Love and Thunder, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. And then on the TV side of things, as Danny mentioned, it started with WandaVision, then The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, Season 1, What If, Hawkeye, Moon Knight, Ms. Marvel, She-Hulk, Attorney at Law. So as I mentioned, no Werewolf by Night, though I did enjoy it quite a bit. I'm not as crazy about it as other people seem to be. It was fine. I enjoyed it, but not a huge thing for me. I enjoyed the style and all that, but I didn't look at it and go like, oh my god, this guy Michael Giacchino needs to come back and direct another thing in the MCU. Like, I didn't feel that at all, but it was a fun little side project. I think it accomplished what a special project, or whatever it's called, a special, is supposed to do, and I think it helps expand what Marvel could ultimately do. Like, hey, maybe they can have legitimate spin-off specials for characters that are interesting enough for 45-minute stints, but maybe not for a full movie or series. So it gives some flexibility to the format, which I appreciate. But yeah, so here we go. Let's go ahead and start with 15 through 11. So what we'll do, the way we'll do it, Danny, is we'll each go one by one, lowering. Like, I do my 15, you do your 15, and then we'll kind of go back and forth until we make our way down. You can't do 15 because you actually did not include What If, but it's fitting because What If is my number 15. It is my least favorite of the Phase 4. And it's funny because I love animation so much, but I don't like a lot of American animation. And for one of me, I'm wondering, thinking like, is it a snobbery that I have against American animation, or is it something specific?
We're
I'm not
just
a huge
weebs,
fan.
Jammer.
No, here's the thing. Maybe I don't think I don't like any of the Star Wars animation. And to me, I kind of felt felt kind of like the Star Wars animation to me. It had to do with the pacing of the way the characters talked. They seem like overly emotive. The pacing is just too fast. Things happen too quickly for me, and it doesn't feel like anything has any real weight to it. And that goes both for the animation and just the gravitas of the situations that occur. Like everyone talks about, oh, the Doctor Strange one is so good. It's the best one. It's pretty good. I think I like in my head what I autocomplete happens more than I actually like what happens. I'm like, oh, the implications surrounding that are really cool. I like the fact that they went dark. I like a bunch of other stuff about it, but it's never executed in a way that I really like. Now, am I just a weeb? It's possible, but I've been preaching how amazing Arcane is, even though I'd only watched half of it until recently. And I watched it again all the way through. Now, that is the type of American, well, it's not really American. I guess it's European, but that is the type of animation that I can get behind. Like that animation, it has physical weight to it in the actual animation, and they're really good at focusing on the emotional core of the story. And I just think that they're better. They're more character arc and emotion driven than they are concept driven. And I think that really helps to dictate the overall pacing, them allowing things to pause, them allowing moments to linger in a way that maybe is more comparable to live action than what we're getting with these animated projects. So that's to me why I think What If didn't fit the bill for me. I know you watched a few episodes of it, Danny. What do you think of based on what I said? Does that ring true to you at all, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned about the Star Wars ones, because it's only been very recently that I actually stuck myself down and plowed through Clone Wars and things like that. And after I got past the first 2 or 3 seasons, I actually really enjoyed those shows. But what you were mentioning about the way that it's very, stuff happens very quickly, etc., etc. I get that. I do understand that. I do see that and feel that. But I don't mind the actual visual style as much of what it seems that you do. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of those What If shows that I did manage to watch. I think that's why I didn't manage to see all of them, because I found them quite tough to get through. But I agree with you on the way that they're paced, etc. But the actual visual style, I don't tend to mind so much. I'm not familiar with this Arcane property that you've just mentioned, though. Is there something else that is similar that I might have known about?
You need to watch Arcane. It's so good.
Where am I going to find it, buddy?
Well, we have it here in the States on Netflix. I don't know where it would be where you are. I'll send you just a YouTube video of something. Like, it is cool. The animation. Okay. So you could tell it has a TV budget, and it kind of resembles a video game in some ways. But I think what they do is they use a video game engine to do sort of the basic animation, but then they touch it up using, by manually. And then they have like hand-drawn elements on the important parts so that it really emphasizes the emotion behind it. So it's really, it just looks great.
What is it, buddy? Sorry, Jam, is it fantasy? Is it sci-fi? Is it
it's a fantasy.
All of the above? Okay, fantasy. Okay, cool. Yeah, I don't
kind
mind.
of a steampunk.
Okay.
Kind of steampunk.
Right. Okay, I'm pretty sure we have the same stuff as you guys have on Netflix, the region that I've got here in Dubai. So I've no doubt.
Before we finish up today, I definitely want to send you a clip of something, and then see your thoughts in real time, because I think it's crazy. Okay. It kind of reminds me a bit of Into the Spider-Verse, but its own style. But in terms of the uniqueness of the animation, I think that's where it holds up. But I don't. So going back to the Star Wars thing, I don't mind the way it looks. I mind the way they move, the way it feels. Right. That to me always rings false. And I think that may be my big problem with it, is it just feels there's no weight, feels a bit cheap. I hate saying that because there are a lot of animators who are very talented, who work really hard on it, but they're working on a budget and time constraints and stuff. So it's like, I think that's all it has to do with it. It's just not my cup of tea, but a lot of people love it. So it's just not for me.
Fair enough. So that's number 15, and it sounds like I probably would have put it at the same place anyway, because the episodes I did watch never really rang true to me, never really got my juices flowing, never got me in the jellies. So I probably would have put it on 15 anyway.
Exactly.
Yep.
So my number 14 is Thor: Love and Thunder. I found this movie to be entertaining, but it was it just had no weight to it. Like, I hate to say this, it had no emotional weight to it. You mentioned this in our review, where just their willingness to make a joke about something, while it's funny, it takes away from the world, the universe as a whole, and it's just not. Yeah. It's not conducive to a thriving universe. It just undercuts it at every level. And I think it had a really good core emotional story. They had a good spine of a story there with Jane having her cancer situation. They were just too willing to lean into the cheap jokes to make it really work. So that's why it's my 14. What about you? What's your 14?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said about Thor. And when we get to where Thor is in my list, I'll have the same things to say about why it's so low. But my 14 actually is Ms. Marvel.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I really could not connect with that show at all. I found the humor there almost non-existent, whereas in Thor, at least like you just said, I found the humor funny. The goats were funny. I laughed. I can't put it any better than you just said about how it detracts from the universe. But Ms. Marvel, for me, the jokes just didn't land. I couldn't relate, connect, give a shit about any of the characters. I really couldn't. And that was the show that I found the hardest to finish. I forced myself to finish it just to know how it actually ends and if it has any impact on Phase 4, what it's going through. But of all the TV shows and all the films, it was the one I struggled with the most to find anything at all to even mildly enjoy in it. I guess I could say I like the idea of them using the graphics in the background, when they were playing with the graffiti on the side. I like that, but that's it. I really can't get anything about this show to like, so it's got to be down at the bottom of my list. Ms. Marvel for me, number 14.
It is at the top half of my list. But so I'll address any of your comments that you have. I get where you're coming from, but we'll talk about it more when we get to it. My number 13 is Eternals. I didn't dislike this movie. Like, I like the only two things I would say I legitimately dislike from Phase 4 were Thor and What If. Everything else, I'd say on some level, I did like, even if it was kind of ho-hum on a lot of them. And I think this is like sort of mildly ho-hum Eternals. I enjoyed it. I thought it was very beautiful. I liked a lot of aspects about it. It just felt a bit
beautiful, didn't it?
Yeah, it looked beautiful. I liked aspects of the fight at the end. I liked a lot of what it did. But I think it would have been better as a TV series than a movie, the more I reflect back on it. And I like a lot of what they did. I just wish that it was more, frankly, entertaining. And I think that's sort of my biggest problem with it. They do so much to scatter the screen time between everyone that they don't really focus enough on any one person. So I can't really tangibly connect. So I'm really connecting with them more on a conceptual level than an emotional level, which is very unlike Marvel. So that's why it's my number 13. What's your 13?
And it's my number 13 as well. I agree with you 100% on this and where it is on the list. There's a lot of good ideas in there. I liked the fact that Marvel themselves were brave enough to give this a shot. And I love the visual style from the director. Forgive me, I can't remember her name. I loved what she did visually. I just felt afterwards that maybe this was a project that would have been better with someone with a bit more experience handling this many characters. Or, and I totally agree with you here, it was a TV show where each episode may be focused on one character with a small storyline running through. And then at the end, we had the big twist, which would have more impact because I would have given a shit about the characters and would have cared that, oh my God, he did that. And now what happens to her and all this. So there was too many things that didn't make it a great movie for me, although I liked the fact that it shot for the moon. Didn't quite reach it though. There's some stuff in there that I was pleased about, but overall it was the weakest entry of the movies for me, as we just discussed. It's the weakest movie for me.
The director is Chloe Zhao.
Thank you.
And I think I agree with you on one thing that's really key, is that it shot for the moon. I'm happy it exists because to me it really showed a willingness to take chances and try new things.
Yeah.
Everyone
Yeah,
had been
yeah.
complaining and still complain that everything kind of feels the same with Marvel. This movie does not feel like, frankly, a Marvel movie. And I think it's kind of cool, even if it didn't really hit me perfectly.
Yep. Yep.
All right, number 12.
12?
My number 12 is Moon Knight. I'm really surprised that it's this low, but episodes 1 and 2 were fantastic. Episodes 3, 4, fucking terrible. So boring. I have no idea why anyone did anything. They could have cut those episodes out and it would have been the same, virtually the same. I still don't really understand anything about the climax. I don't understand anything about why these, I think they were giants doing shit. Giant, what's it called?
Kaijus.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't understand what's happening. I really don't understand the goal of the main baddie of it, what his motivation is, how he like kind of fits into it. I just don't get it. And normally in a lot of movies like this, if I don't get it, like I say this about the Mission Impossible movies, I don't know 80% of what's happening, but I know whether or not some things are good or bad, and I care enough to like have a good time. By the end of Moon Knight, I really didn't care that much. I did like Oscar Isaac. I did like the way they portrayed his trauma and all that. I thought that aspect was good, but everything else around it in the latter half, I could have done without. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, again, I think the things that you just mentioned about why you liked Moon Knight is why it's not in my bottom 3, but is definitely a reason why it's down there for me. But my number 12 is Love and Thunder, for pretty much what you just spoke about. I was just so, it's interesting. I was just talking to producer Carl before you joined us. It's been fun, this, because we give these movies and shows a letter grading based on their quality and other things, and we try to be a bit less personal about it. But sometimes you have these personal feelings about movies, and we enjoy them or not. And Thor disappointed me so much because Ragnarok was so good. It found the balance between comedy and, should we say, seriousness, because you do words better than what I do, but that's because you're an accomplished writer and I'm not. But it shit the bed for me. It with its leaning into, like you said, the slapstick comedy and stuff. And the more, it still makes me angry when I think about it now, which is why it was bouncing down the list. The fucking God donut and the doing the splits to keep the cars apart and stuff. I'm like, we didn't get that in Ragnarok. We had sensible humor, should we say, but it sucked, and I don't want to go over again because everything you said about it, but it really did take it out. And I guess a lot of the reasons it's down so low for me is I was so disappointed that it wasn't as good as Ragnarok, and that forces down. Now it's a better film, I think, than Eternals. It's a better structure than Eternals, etc. For what we discussed, which is why it's not 13, it's number 12, but it's down there in my bottom 3, and that's where it belongs.
Fair enough. All right, so we're moving on to number 11, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Wow, go.
So, I mean, this was the second TV series we've had after WandaVision. And WandaVision, I thought, was paced pretty well in the way it structured everything. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it was the first time I experienced the Marvel Disney Plus slump, which is episodes 3 and 4. And the first 2 episodes I thought were pretty good. 3 and 4, I stopped caring about who was doing what, who that girl from Star Wars, I forget her name, and her group of people were doing. I liked Baron Zemo, but I definitely consciously found myself being like, wait, why are they going to this party? What's happening here? Does this really make sense? How are they doing this? It just felt it felt very TV. It almost felt network TV in some ways, just like how kind of cheesy and weird that things got. It's like, oh, well, everyone's going to like Baron Zemo, so let's humanize him in this way that kind of felt disingenuous. And also like put him in situations where that doesn't quite make sense, but whatever. It has a great core story. It has, and by the way, it's at number 11, but there were, I think, past Moon Knight, we're at the part where I'm like, this is pretty good. Moving on up, in my opinion. So that's where I'm standing. I liked the inclusion of Isaiah Bradley in the mythology here. about the slight is it's a very not strong word against the Black Americans. I would say that's obviously stronger than that, and how that is sort of incorporated into the MCU was great. I think overall it was mostly strong at the tail end. That final battle I did not care for that much. In that moment where that guy was like, "That's Captain America," that was kind of cheesy. And then that like 6-minute monologue that the new Captain America gives was a bit on the nose and kind of blah. But I liked the action. I liked, oh my God, U.S. Agent. I liked the way he was incorporated to it. I don't like his little redemption at the end. I think it would have been more interesting if he didn't get like a full redemption there, but I understand their desire to do that. I do like the shades of gray that they are painting his character with, where it's like he's a warrior, he's trying to do good, but he's definitely kind of an entitled prick at the same time. All these other aspects. So it's not gray, or it's not black and white, and I like that about this.
I got a question on that, Jammer, because something that Nick and I disagreed on, but many others, and sounds like you agreed on, the new Cap, Falcon, Sam, having his monologue after having the whole series show us that monologue in a relatively well executed way. Do you think that kind of hitting you over the head one more time for those in back, do you think if that was cut out, this might have been a little bit better for you?
I don't think it could have been cut out. I think they should have shortened it. I think they could have used less, but I think punctuating it in some way would have been good.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't need to hit me with a sledgehammer, but hitting me with like a little love tap with a normal hammer.
Well, I mean, they had done a really good job at saying everything that he said.
Agreed.
And it's like, if you didn't absorb that, then you... anyways.
No, I think that's a good point. I mean, maybe didn't need it, maybe not. But for me, I like there to be like inference, or implication, and then just like, in case you missed it, here's a little boop just to make sure you kind of get it, as opposed to like a giant hammer. Like, give me a little hammer is okay. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah. Well, we all enjoy a giant hammer or a little hammer every now and then, don't we?
That's true.
What do I think about? Okay, well, my number 11. I think this sounds like and looks like, based on what we've talked about already, I think this is where you've put Falcon and where I've put Falcon and Winter Soldier are the furthest apart I think that we're going to get tonight on this list. My number 11 is WandaVision.
Whoa! No, this is the farthest apart we're going to get. Oh, unless that. Wait, is Falcon and Winter Soldier your number one?
Fuck no.
Spoilers, Jammer. Go through the list, damn it.
I'm sorry. I just want to say, I think this is the farthest apart we're going to get. WandaVision.
No spoilers, but no, it's not my number one. But no, WandaVision. And this was one of the reasons why I found this so much fun, because WandaVision, as we've just said, was the first show back in, how long ago was it? And so
middle of last year. 2001?
It's a while, right? And we've had a lot of content, not just Marvel content since then. So I was sitting there going, what do I remember about it? And all I can remember about it, other than the main story, was I remember being frustrated every week because everyone kept mentioning a certain character beginning with M and ending in Fisto. And I remember getting so frustrated with that, but slightly at the same time as I was with the show. I liked the format of it, the different eras of television, but I found this one, the pacing, to be slow. I wanted things to move on quicker. I wanted them to get to the point more. I liked the performances of pretty much everybody in the show, but I was frustrated. And that's why I love doing this, because I can't tangibly put why. I just remember not enjoying this show as much as I thought I was going to after the first 2 episodes, and was more and more frustrated as it went on. I liked the conclusion, but I think that was more, I was glad it was over and I don't have to listen to, did anyone see Mephisto this week? Shit, every single episode. Now, obviously, that's a small thing, but that's what I remember. I remember being frustrated with the show. I remember wishing they would get to the point, and I remember wishing that someone would figure something out sooner so I could actually understand what the hell was going on too. Someone would probably be able to convince me to put this further up the list, I'm sure, but at the moment it sits at number 11 out of pure frustration with the show itself, from what I can remember from 2 years ago.
I wonder how differently you would feel if you hadn't watched it week to week and podcasted about it every week. I wonder if it would have been
good point.
If you just gone straight through it, because it's not that much. If you had watched it over the course of maybe 2 sittings, how you would have felt.
Yeah, that's true. And maybe I should, because it's been a long time now, and maybe that would make me change my list if we ever do this again. But maybe. Right now it sits number 11 for me.
Fair. My number 10. My bottom 5, yeah. My bottom 5, just as a reminder: What If, Thor: Love and Thunder, Eternals, Moon Knight, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And your bottom 5 for you, Danny?
Well, so far it's Miss Marvel, Eternals, Thor, WandaVision, and I'm about to give you my 5th.
All right, cool. So my number 10 is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I thought this movie, I enjoyed this movie quite a bit. I thought it was fun. I really enjoyed the cape full of dead zombies and the way they were just like yelling as he was like flying away. That was really funny. I do like also the idea that he can never find his way to find in love with Rachel McAdams' character. I thought that was cool, and the "I love you in every universe" line I thought was really awesome. But I thought the overall plot was a bit weak. America Chavez didn't really get enough to do other than just kind of be a MacGuffin, kind of being tossed around.
Yep.
And it got a bit too goofy at times for me, specifically the Bruce Campbell appearance, where he was just like, "Eat ketchup." I was like, what sort of reaction is like, "Eat ketchup"? I think it was ketchup, where he was just like, for no reason, just starts telling them to eat ketchup. I guess you could argue it's a different universe, so it's like people are weirder there, but it just felt so weird. My biggest slight against this movie was they'd done Wanda dirty. And I think maybe it also has to do with what they did with her in WandaVision. They gave her an amazing arc. And they just undid it off screen. And it just bothers me. Because her whole journey in WandaVision is about grief and accepting grief and moving on. And she kind of accepted it and moved on. Except, no, not really. Not for the next movie. Now she's the villain. Granted, I like what she did in that movie.
I see. I see what you mean.
But it just felt
connection between the two, right?
Yeah,
we missed much. There was a big leap that we had to fill in ourselves.
It was like between the previous movie and Avengers: Age of Ultron, all the previous movies, where you had Iron Man saying, "I've destroyed all my suits. Oh, we're back together," and then Cap being like, "I'm on the run, except I'm back here for this." So it's like it didn't quite match up. It's like, what did we miss? What happened? Doctor Strange also had what I consider to be the crossover syndrome, and that is whenever there's like a crossover in the comics, while the stakes are bigger, I feel everything less. Like if I went back and read the Infinity Gauntlet run, people die, but I feel nothing because I know they're not really dead. And that's kind of what I felt, where it's like you kind of feel empty inside, kind of feel dark, like, ooh, kind of feel gross inside. It's like, oh, that was a horrific death, but I guess it doesn't mean anything. And I felt that when he took on the Illuminati and killed everyone, where it's like, it's cool, but it doesn't matter. And it feels empty and soulless. So I guess it's a slight in some way against it. That's why it didn't quite work emotionally for me. And it kind of took away from the overall core narrative, away from Strange himself. But overall, entertaining. I had a great time. I haven't watched it since, but I'll probably check it out again, like whenever at some point, but I just haven't yet.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I think there's a little bit of the with elements of Doc Strange there. The reason why it's also down low on my list too, but it's not my next one. Is that it's one of the things that at the moment is making me enjoy less, I should say, this current saga we're in, the multiverse saga, whatever it's called, because of I don't think I can get attached to these characters, because we might just see them again because we're going to a different universe and they'll still be alive, and it might be the same actor, it might not, but So it's making me care less. It's almost where they're bringing back Tony Stark. I'm like, well, don't do that, because that impact of Endgame's finale is going to be ruined for me. That character died, or that character died in that moment, and I don't want him to come back, because otherwise, like, well, how am I ever going to give a shit about anybody in these Marvel films now, knowing that they could quite easily come back next week because of another multiverse thing? So that's how I feel about it at the moment, and that also then runs through a little bit of the reasons why we didn't like Thor so much, where it's just taking a bit too many liberties with stuff, and it means that we're now tapping out like the Illuminati, those characters. We wanted to see these certain characters, but now they just threw them away and discarded them. Like, well, if they come back now, then in any capacity, whoever the actor is, well, it doesn't matter, because maybe they'll die and they'll come back again. So it's not my next. My next one is Moon Knight. For all the reasons you said, but here's a big one for me, and it kept sticking in my mind on this one because it's a more recent show that we've watched. There wasn't enough Moon Knight for me. As much as, and I loved Oscar Isaacs in it. I thought he was brilliant, and it was one of the reasons why the show was good, right? It was wonderful, and the way he was playing the two, as it ended up being three, maybe even more characters we don't know yet in the future, was amazing. But I just wanted to see more Moon Knight in Moon Knight show, and there was too much of the show that was other stuff, like you, that I didn't really fully understand either what was going on or the motivations of why they're going on, and then the decisions they made to put us in that situation. But for me, everything you said, and not enough Moon Knight. And I was left thinking, what did I just watch? It was good. He was good, sorry. There had some good bits in it, but I have no idea what I just saw. And what does that end in? I don't know. So for that reason, that's why it's my bottom 5. Moon Knight is my number 10.
Kind of jumping back into that, one of the reasons why I think it dropped off for me is I thought Steven was an amazing main character. Mark was boring to watch compared to Steven until he faced the trauma. Like, it was way more entertaining to watch Steven take on things over his head than it was Mark. And I think maybe that may have been a big reason why I was less entertained in like episodes 3 and 4 than 1 and 2.
Yeah, and anytime there was anything that might be entertaining action-wise, they just cut it out and showed Mark afterwards, or Stephen afterwards. And hold on, I wanted to see that. Look
I don't
at all
mind
those
that.
dead bodies and those explosions. Can I see some of that? Just a little bit of how that happened. I don't need to see all of it, but should be some of it, not just cutting it out. That got a bit frustrating. I would have preferred not to have had the action than to have been teased by there was action here, but we're not showing it to you.
I like the teasing personally. I see where you're coming from, but I like the stylization. I'm like, I've seen enough action in Marvel movies. I've seen enough action in superhero movies. I'm more interested in sort of the plot machinations and all that. But I just personally thought Steven was way more interesting of a main character, and I don't like the fact that he got relegated. I understand why, and I thought it was a cool twist where it's like he's not the main character. He's not the I forget the terminology for DID and what they utilize, but and also I do appreciate their more nuanced view of DID. I thought it would be a situation where you think it's DID, but it's not. It was the exact opposite, where you think it's something magical, but it actually is DID. And I thought that was very risky. It is a very, very rare ailment, if I want to call it that. And we know so little about it. And we saw a Split. It tends to be one of those things that is really over exaggerated in Hollywood. So the fact that we were getting that here, I was just like, ooh, you're playing with fire, Disney here. But I think overall they did a pretty good job with it.
Yes, I agree. They handled it quite well, considering, like you say, that what little is known about it, they didn't go too extreme one way or the other. They didn't make it completely extreme. Like I said, they did manage to stay in that grey area, and like they were playing with fire, but it seemed to me that they had people in control of that fire, which made that storyline pretty damn good and not too cringy. So it's good. I did enjoy that show, but it is number 10 for me.
It's funny because I'm writing a story right now. It was one of the reasons why when Moon Knight came out, I was nervous, because one of my stories is like she thinks she has DID, but it's something supernatural. It's like flipped. Yeah. I just thought that was just like, oh no, hopefully it's not the same. It's not, thank God. But it's just, I was just like nervous.
What are you doing writing that? You should be writing City of Mages book 2. What the hell?
I already wrote the outline for that. Kirsten's drafting it. It's all on her. So
all right.
yeah,
Mrs. Jammer's in control. We'll hurry up with that because I love the first one. I want the second one.
Thank you.
So,
Okay,
number 9 for you.
Number 9 for me is Wakanda Forever. Which
There's
I thought
that
was
internship coming back again.
There's my internship, my studying
semester
abroad.
That's
semester abroad in Wakanda. So I can talk like that. But no, I thought it was a very respectful movie that brought a tone that I feel like we had long since forgotten in the MCU movies, especially off the heels of Thor: Love and Thunder. And I liked the story they were telling. I just wish I was more entertained throughout it. I was a bit bored for a good chunk of it. I felt that runtime quite a bit. But the acting was great. I thought they all destroyed their roles in a good way. Wait, that's a bad way of saying it. They all killed their roles. I thought it was great. I was really impressed. Like Angela Bassett was great. I was really impressed with Shuri and how understated she was throughout the whole movie, especially how big she was in the first Black Panther. I was wondering how much nuance they would bring to her, and I thought she was so human. My biggest criticism is that it's unfocused. For the first 30 to 40 minutes, you don't even realize who the main character is. And then you realize, oh, it's Shuri's story. Okay, I would have structured it differently to make it focus more on her in the beginning. That way we can get that more rewarding overall arc for her. So that's that's my biggest criticism. And but still, I think it's very good, very respectful. I think it accomplishes what it's supposed to, and mostly effectively.
Yeah.
But yeah, Wakanda.
Yeah, that's interesting. We'll talk about that again when it gets to my number, gets further down the list, because my number 9 is actually Doc Strange. So you and I are pretty much on the level there where we're placing these movies. As always, the reasons why I didn't enjoy this as much as I hoped I would, because I really did enjoy the first Doctor Strange. I think Cumberbatch Bandersnatch is fantastic in the role, and I love watching him on screen, whether it's in this one or his turn in Spider-Man. But on top of everything that you said about this film, which I agree with, I would have liked to have seen more of the other worlds, the other verses, the other multiverses. We kind of bounced through them quite a lot when he first got together with what's her name? Captain America
Chavez.
USA. That's what I said. Yeah. There you go. And then we didn't have much of that. So that would have been something that I wanted. So in Moon Knight, I wanted more Moon Knight, and in multiverses, I would have liked to have seen some more multiverses. But that's not to say that's the only reason I didn't like it. I agree with everything you said about why this movie, although not awful, and I did enjoy it, I did see it twice on the big screen, it's just not as good as I hoped it would be for the reasons that you said. I totally agree.
Which is funny.
Disappointing, but it doesn't mean it's an awful film, though. It doesn't mean it's awful. It just means it's not, higher up my list because it's not what I enjoyed the most.
People do say that a lot, that there are not enough multiverses. I think we effectively travel between 3 or 4 of them, which in a movie setting I think is respectable. I think what we're hearing here is that people just want a series for Doctor Strange. I think that may have been better if they had done that. It would have allowed them to explore more multiverses. I guess they could have done it better in the movie, but for me, I didn't feel the fact the whole time. I wasn't like, oh, where are all the multiverses? I'm like, no, we got to dose the multiverses, and we got to jump between them. He got to fight against another Doctor Strange in a music fight in another universe, and so they had them. I guess they just weren't maybe as impactful as people wanted, or as weird and different as people wanted. And I think
I was expecting. Yeah,
we would have been able to explore that a lot more in a TV show, but for a movie, I think it did pretty good. My number 8, Black Widow. I'm surprised how high this was on my list. For me, it just felt like a unique Marvel movie. I think it was more dark espionage than, well, maybe not, but on par with Captain America: The Winter Soldier in terms of how overall tone and how it felt. I also really liked the opening credits. Oh my God, those were so good. For that, I was just like, I remember watching it and being like, I wonder if like people watch this who aren't into Marvel stuff, they saw that opening, they'd be like, Jesus, this is a Marvel movie. You're watching the the trafficking and abuse of young girls all over the world. That's just horrifying. I like the subject matter quite a bit. It was underscored by boring villains, I think is the big problem with it. The main guy was pretty mustache twirly, and Taskmaster didn't have enough. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, Taskmaster should have been this, because I don't know anything about Taskmaster in the comics. So I don't know what he normally does, but the way she was portrayed here, I just felt like she was just kind of there, didn't have a lot of agency, which I guess is kind of the point. But I wish there was some reclamation of it at the end. But overall, I just thought it was entertaining time. It was a great movie to go back to the theaters for. I think it would have been better had the movie come out after Civil War and not more recently. But yeah, that's my number 9.
8.
No, oh, that's my number 8.
8. Yep. It's funny because as you're listing the things there, I'm like, okay, these are the reasons why it's higher up on my list. So maybe we pretty much agree all over the place, but when we disagree, we really freaking disagree about these films.
Oh, I'm interested because like Black Widow, what did I say was bad about it?
Well, you didn't. You listed pretty much. Well, you mentioned that Taskmaster was a bit just as a non-henchman kind. That's what he was.
Yeah, mostly the villains.
Yeah, you said the villains. But for my number 8, and as I'm looking at my list now, I'm going, well, actually, I think I enjoyed it more. Anyway, I'll stick with what I've written.
I mean, for me, 8 and above is pretty good. Like, it's all positive.
My number 8 is She-Hulk.
Okay.
My number 8 is She-Hulk. And I'm looking, like I said, I'm looking at it and going, well, you know what? I think I enjoyed it more than that. It's too late now. Stick with what I've written.
It's too late. It's done.
It's done. I enjoyed She-Hulk. It was a nice palate cleanser, breath of fresh air from all the other things that had been disappointing on movies and on TV shows up to that point. Not the whole way through, but up to that point. We'd had a few too many misses rather than hits. And so for me, it was like, you know what? I'm happy that they're doing something different and breaking the fourth wall and all this stuff. I enjoyed it. For me, it was easy. Turn it on, enjoy it for what it was, and happily forget about anything that happened pretty much. However, I think the reason why it's not further up my list, closer to the number 1 spot, is because of what impact it on further thought and further viewing, what impact it's having on the Marvel universe now. So now we've got a character that knows that she's in a show and references the other characters, including the Incredible Hulk, that's now climbing through the Disney screen and actually altering her own script, etc. How does this fit into the Marvel Cinematic Universe as we know it now? Because that opened almost a Pandora's box of, I don't know what I'm watching anymore. Can all the characters now do this now then? Is that what... I don't know.
It means. Here's what I think it means.
Sorry, I'll let you finish that point. But I think that was the only reason why it dropped down was the ending, the climax. When I was watching it, I thought, well, this is fun. That's fun. That's cool. She's taking on this. But on further reflection, I'm like, but what does this mean now? Much like Thor: Love and Thunder, where you've got King of the Donuts, does that mean now that every foodstuff has a god that people follow? And then it's just weird because I can't help looking at the big picture, MCU-wise, and that's what I did there with She-Hulk and the ending. So for me, it was the conclusion, although fun and original and unique at the time. What does that mean moving forwards? So go, Jammer, tell me what you think that actually means or what it could potentially mean.
What I think it means moving forward is that when She-Hulk is in another world, she's going to play by those rules. It's only when she's in her own show that she'll break the fourth wall. So let's say she pops up in an Avengers movie. She's probably not going to be breaking the fourth wall. She's going to have her same personality, but that's it. We're not going to get any of the fourth wall breaking.
So you're saying that's a different... I don't get. How can that be the same universe then?
It's the same universe. If she's interacting with other people in other properties that are not named She-Hulk, she will just have her same personality, but will not break the fourth wall. Kind of like how, I'm trying to think here, Ant-Man somehow fit in seamlessly in Endgame, even though he was the same character. They just want to have fourth wall.
Yeah, I get that, but I think that was a. That's got to be you can't be comparing the two there. Ant-Man wasn't breaking the fourth wall to that extent. He was just a quirkier character.
She'll just essentially be a quirky character in other properties, right, but she won't be bringing in her quote unquote fourth wall breaking powers.
So it's up to us as the viewer to just say, okay, well, this is not her show, so everything that happened in her show didn't happen in this world.
No. It's not that it didn't happen, but
God,
they're not going to be
hoping to avoid this conversation. They're not going. They're not
break. They're not gonna reference it in other, because they're not gonna say, "Oh, you remember that time you did this?" Because to them, what they saw was a battle happen in that farmhouse, and that's it. Only she is privy to like the behind the scenes stuff. And so she's probably not going to mention it to anybody.
Then? So did Hulk beat up Abomination then?
That's probably no. They didn't, because we didn't get to see that. That's my biggest criticism about this show. That's what I mean.
So we didn't get to see that. So what happened then? If that's not what we got to saw, if that
they're probably not going to reference it ever again. They're probably not going to reference it ever again, or maybe they will. Yeah. Maybe they'll reference it and say, "Oh, this is the definitive version of what happened because we missed it." Right. But that was my biggest criticism with She-Hulk, and this is good to fit because it's my number 7. She-Hulk is my number 7.
Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah. So a lot of the positives that you had, I agree. I thought it was fun. I thought it was funny. I really liked Tatiana Maslany as the main character. I liked a lot of supporting cast. I liked Wong. I liked Madison. I liked just all the different aspects they had of it. Yeah, there were a couple episodes that were weaker than the others. The Lost stuff was weak as shit, but like whatever, it was a silly show. But the biggest problem I had was you know how she went to broke the fourth wall and then rearranged the pieces on the board, so to speak, for the climax. I wish she had done that, and then we saw things play out given that new criteria, as opposed to it just having ended. That, I think, took away from it. And maybe that was the point, but I feel like I wish we would have seen it and understood the resolution better. I just think that took away from everything that had built up to it. Like, we don't quite understand, like, how did things happen with that guy who originally transformed but then didn't transform? Like, what actually happened there? We don't really know. Yeah. And none of the stuff felt as earned. Again, maybe that was the point, but it just felt not great.
Yep. I agree with that. I agree.
But yeah, I think, like I said, going forward, I just think, like I said, if She-Hulk is in another property, she's going to be her same personality, but she's going to play by the same rules. They aren't going to reference specific events that were like, oh, you remember the time you jumped out of the Disney Plus logo or anything like that? They're not going to do any of that. And if they reference it, like maybe we'll say like, hey, that fight in the farmhouse where this happened, maybe we'll get it like a other perspective of a definitive version of what happened, but we'll never get a reference to her breaking the fourth wall, and she won't be breaking the fourth wall in projects that aren't titled She-Hulk. I think that's what I think.
Yep, and I like that perspective, and I like that thought, and I'd be happy with that because, like you said, I thought she did a great job with the character. I liked her both as She-Hulk and as just the attorney. So if we have those characters exactly as we saw them, I'd be more than happy with that because I think that was one of the reasons why I enjoyed the show because she was great. She was great in the roles.
And I love Daredevil
the CGI and stuff. I enjoyed the roles that they played. So.
And Daredevil was great too. I mean, similarly, people are like, this Daredevil is too light. I'm like, well, yeah, this Daredevil is playing in She-Hulk world. The second he goes back to Daredevil world, I'm sure he'll be darker and more morose, just as we're used to seeing him. Maybe not as dark as Netflix, but he will be darker, probably to line up more with his comics.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's my number 8. So we're on to your 7, which I think you just said was She-Hulk, right?
Yep, correct.
Yep.
So now you're 7.
Well, so my number 7 was Hawkeye.
Okay.
Yep, and this is where it started to get tough, and hence the fun for me because I do enjoy Hawkeye quite a lot, and I'm looking at the list still and thinking, you know what? I enjoyed the characters in this. I enjoyed the fact that we had a lighter tone from him. I loved the mentorship kind of thing. I love the Christmas setting. I love the city setting for all that. There wasn't a lot. What's the character's name, Jammer?
Kingpin.
No, not Kingpin. The daughter of Kingpin. The
Echo.
Echo. Thank you so much. I thought that character I thought was fantastic, and to have that character have the arc that she had in that show when it's not her show and all that kind of stuff. Those are the little things I really enjoyed with this show. I wasn't expecting to like Hawkeye as much as I did, and I did actually really enjoy this one. So for me, again, this was a bit more fun. It wasn't going into the multiverse stuff. It wasn't teasing with any of that. What I'm finding frustrating. It was a show with the guy with the bow that's been in the Avengers. And that for me was all I wanted it to be. So for me, it actually did what I wanted it to do. And I thought it did pretty well. I'm happy that it's in my top 10. I'm happy it's in my top 7. Still contemplating whether maybe it should have been higher, but Hawkeye is my number 7.
It is higher for me, but not, we'll get to it when we get to it. But so I agree with you on all that. We'll talk about it in a bit. But for now, I'm going to go to my number 6, which was Ms. Marvel. I definitely understand where you're coming from with like how you couldn't connect. And maybe that's true. I think I'm probably a little bit biased here on my end because whenever I thought they did a great job of kind of displaying her dynamic with the family, and it felt very warm in that sense. And I like the fact that even though the family had like their problems and disconnects, they weren't super bitchy, if that makes sense. And that could have been a problem where it's just like, oh, I hate my life. My family doesn't understand me, which there was a little bit of that. But then there was also a little bit of like, there was definite like respect that Kamala had with her family, and they still respected her. Like there was definite, everything I felt was done with love with them. And I think that was a nice little, what's it called? Threading of the needle that they did of making them antagonists-ish early on, but you still didn't feel like they were dicks. And, I also, I don't watch very many things or see very many things with that culture represented. And it was nice to see it very much in sort of a slice of life type way. So I like getting peeks into other cultures like that. And then as somebody who's just, I like seeing other cultures that aren't just America or,
it's interesting you say that, Jammer, because obviously you're aware I live in the Middle East and have done for 20 years. Now I live in a very specific part of the Middle East that is not necessarily where people like Jonesy and producer Kyle have had the dubious pleasure of spending some of their time. But I do have
man. I was at the birthplace of civilization. Mesopotamia. That's where I was at for one of them.
Was it nice? Was it as nice as it sounds? I never been.
Jammer, you know what we're talking about, right?
Yes, I know what you're talking about. I'm kidding.
Okay.
Calm down.
Scared me for a second there.
but for me, that means, Jammer, that I have friends and longer serving friends from this particular culture, from Pakistan, that are Muslim, and I've had the pleasure of going to their houses and things. And for me, it's like, there's a lot of that is true, but there's a lot of that I think was softened down or dare I say it, dumbed down a little bit for the TV show, because the families just are not like that. Nor are they the extreme where you were saying that it was nice to show them as normal families, but from a different cultural perspective. That bit was true, and they are, should we say, regular people that happen to have different cultural or religious beliefs. But it's not like that either. There's certain aspects that are just that's not how they spend their days like that. That's just you're making it seem a little bit too flip-flop the other way now. So maybe that was one of the reasons why I found it a little bit frustrating, because it's not quite like that. But you're right in the sense that it did a good job of showing the cultural differences, but at the same time they were very nice and good and happy and kind to their daughter, to Kamala. So that bit was good. Sorry,
I was gonna say I would throw in I don't know what the word is for, but I think you think you might be missing the calculation that these are Pakistani immigrants in America with an American slant to their
That's what I was gonna say.
culture and having blended in with other American Muslims that had already been there, other American Pakistani Americans. So I think what you see with Muslims from other primarily Islamic or Muslim nations is going to be different than seeing Western Muslims, and especially
for sure. But that's why, no, I totally agree, Colin. You're absolutely right. But that's why I was referencing that I live in Dubai rather than some of the other parts of the Middle East, because that is very different. You're 100% correct, and I totally take that on board. But I live in a part of the Middle East that is very much Western feeling and affected, etc. So it is very much more that side of things rather than difficult. So, but you're 100% right. But I have seen a Western influenced society a lot more where I am specifically compared to where you guys served and were deployed. So you're 100% right, but I have seen that more westernized style and of immigrant, etc. So you're right, but I still feel that they kind of missed the mark a little bit. But 100% agree, they did a nice job with it. Just because they missed the mark doesn't mean that they did it badly or they got it wrong. It's just that it was slightly off. But I did like that bit, but that may be reasons why I maybe didn't like the show as much. But sorry, Jammer, this is your 7. You go, buddy.
And I don't think it's meant to present reality as much as it's supposed to represent a specific feeling of a specific reality. I mean, this is the perspective of a handful of writers. It's created by Bishak Ali, who is a British Pakistani. So it's a mishmash. I think it's more about capturing the essence and like you said, having an idealized version of what they like, things they like about being an immigrant mixed in with their heritage and stuff, and just mixing it into the Marvel tapestry. All of those things kind of woven into something that is ultimately not accurate, but something that they want to be represented on screen. It's it's a fantasy. Sure. It's a fantasy on screen with cultural elements that mean something to the writers, which I think is key. It doesn't need to be accurate, just like almost any high school situation and any Hollywood thing doesn't feel like high school. It's just there to accomplish a specific thing.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
But I get your point for sure. There's, what was I going to say about it? I think it had a slump in the middle, like the other shows, but I think the overall climax, the last 2 episodes, I really enjoyed. That mixed in with the family, I thought was great, and I just I like the overall. You mentioned the comedy didn't land with you. I didn't think there was a lot of comedy either, but I think it had a charm to it that kind of warmed me quite a bit as I watched it. So even if I didn't find it funny or anything, I was definitely just charmed throughout most of it. So my number 6.
Okay. Well, my number 6, a little bit different to where you placed this, was Shang-Chi.
Okay. I haven't placed Shang-Chi yet.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry. No spoilers. Sorry, I was talking about the other one. This one, what let this down for me, I liked this movie quite a bit. I saw it twice at the big screen. I enjoyed it pretty much all the way through. I love seeing these new characters because I had no connection to these characters whatsoever from the comics. These were comics I'd never even read or even heard of up until the point when we started to talk about them being part of the MCU. So for me, it was a great introduction to them. I love the way they brought these characters in. I thought the action set pieces were new and unique and were fun. And then the final third, and it let it down for me. I think it was because they had done such a good job leading up to that I was hoping that great job would carry on and give me something I hadn't seen before, as they had done up to that point, various things. And it kind of just let me down a little bit, which is why it's not any higher than 6, but it definitely is one of my favorite films of MCU Phase 4. And I am looking forward to the second one of these for sure, and to seeing this character again play out in more ways in Phase 5 and obviously ultimately in Phase 6 as well. This was good. This was good fun. Just let me down on the final third, unfortunately.
Fair. You'll hear a little bit more about that when it hits on my list. But for now, my number 5. Actually, you just did your number 6, correct?
Yes, sir.
So just to recap on my end, mine is my bottom 15 through 6. What If, Thor: Love and Thunder, Eternals, Moon Knight, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, Wakanda Forever, Black Widow, She-Hulk, and Ms. Marvel. What about yours so far?
Yeah, so I would have put What If at 15 as well, based on what we were talking about at the beginning, and then coming down the list would have been Ms. Marvel, Eternals, and Thor: Love and Thunder, WandaVision and Moon Knight, then Doc Strange, She-Hulk, and then Hawkeye would have been number 7, with Shang-Chi being in the top 6.
My number 5 is Loki, season 1. I thought this show was super fun. It still had that mid slump for me, but I still liked a lot of what happened. I really enjoyed the dynamic between, I almost called him the Doctor, between Loki and and Mobius, as well as his alternate version. And that climax was stupendous. Just a bit of a saggy middle, But I also liked the opening theme song. That opening theme song is so good. I just think it also just has really strong characterization of Loki. A lot of people complain about his sped up character arc because we essentially get the most evil version of Loki transitioning into the softest version of Loki over the course of a single episode. And I get that, but as someone who watched that arc happen over the course of several movies, I didn't want to watch it happen again over the course of several movies. Like, get to the point.
Get it done quick.
We know the good is in him somewhere, and I can buy him. Seeing his life play before his eyes can unlock something in him that otherwise would not have been there. It's a bit easy, but I'll take it. Give me more of what's going on. I want to see, because really what we want to see is more of the Loki that we liked continuing on in his journey. And that's ultimately
interacting with people and stuff. So, exactly.
Great show. I'm really excited for season 2. I didn't realize how amazing Owen Wilson would be in the MCU, and I'm just so happy that he's here as well. So great job.
Yeah, I agree. And because of all the reasons why you just said that you put Loki in your top 5, it's also the reason why he's not my number 5, and that the Falcon and Winter Soldier is my number 5.
Okay.
For everything, all the good things that you listed before previously. But one of the things that I liked most about this, on top of what you said, was, and I did like the dynamic between the two leads, between Falcon and Winter Soldier, or what was to become Captain America and Winter Soldier. I really enjoyed those two on screen together, and I think those two in the show made up for some of the points that you were pointing out of that kind of dragged the show down a little bit or slowed it down a little bit. And along with, obviously, Mr. Zemo himself in there as well, I think the actors and the way they played the characters carried this show higher up the list for me rather than the actual show itself, because I really enjoyed seeing them on screen. So all the reasons why you liked it, etc., were great, but some of the reasons why it wasn't quite so good for you, I think, was outweighed by the quality that we saw of the actors on screen. And I look forward to seeing them partner up together too, particularly on the boat scene. I can't remember what episode it was, but when they were connecting on the boat, fixing up Sam's sister's boat towards the end, just that interplay between them. It was very simple scenes, very laid back scenes, but I enjoyed them very much. So Falcon and Winter Soldier is in my top 5.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think the good elements in that show are very good. I just wish that it didn't have the saggy middle.
I understand.
Moving on to my number 4.
No one likes saggy bits.
It's true.
Nope.
Saggy bits. Don't
Especially
like
when
that.
you get to my age.
It's true. Hawkeye is my number 4. I liked it for all the same reasons you did.
Cool.
I thought it had a great lighthearted tone. I like Haley Steinfeld in virtually everything that she's in. She's just really funny. She brings like an awkward funniness that I think fits well as a nice counterpoint to Hawkeye, who is kind of a cantankerous uncle. That's like the role that he adopted with like him and what's her name? Not her.
Wanda.
Yeah, Wanda. And he kind of transferred that over to this girl. It felt a little more paternal, though, to be honest, I think. But I liked his character and what he was trying to do. And the whole thing was like, I gotta get home for Christmas type of thing. It's a stupid cliche, but I like that they incorporate it into the MCU. I think my biggest criticism was how they presented Kingpin. He was more grounded in the Daredevil thing, and in this one he's closer to the comic, where he's just sort of this big bull, and somehow he's strong. It's not really explained how, but he is. Like his ability to just survive explosions and to do things. And the way he acts, it's the same as in Daredevil, but in context of the show, it feels more jarring and it feels more not good. And I don't know why it is, because I think it works in Daredevil, but it doesn't quite work here as much.
I think you just explained it. The tone of the show is very, very different. The tone of the rest of Hawkeye is very different from Daredevil. So although his character is the same, it doesn't fit. I think you just said it. I think it's because of the tone of the rest of the show.
But not in the way you would think. Like for me, it just doesn't feel like, because in Daredevil, I think, to me, I look at that, I'm like, that's film quality acting. And here I'm like, that's just too big. Like he's like, I'm Kingpin. I don't remember how he talks. He just talks in this really specific way. It just felt weird. But regardless, the show itself I thought was So much fun. It is the one Marvel show not to have a saggy middle. It was entertaining consistently throughout. It was so good. Well, no, it's one of two to be consistently entertaining throughout. I looked forward to each episode so much each week. Especially compared because usually the first 2 or 3 episodes I'm looking forward to it, and then I kind of like I'll get to the other 3 or 4 when I get to it. But this one I'm like every week, give me some Hawkeye. I'm ready for some Hawkeye. I loved Yelena in this. Her showing up in this. She and the other girl had like great chemistry together, and I'm excited to see them interacting a lot more. It was goofier, it was weird, it was like sillier, but I'm on board with Hawkeye LARPing. So all good stuff. I'm on board, even though you have the tracksuit mafia. It's stupid, but whatever.
Well, my number 4 is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. It's more fresh in my mind at the moment, obviously, because it's only just been released. It's been out for a week now. I think coming up to the first week for me here. And for me, the reason why it's so high on my list and it's number 4 is I think finally there's been a film now that seems to be almost, dare I say, a return to form as far as quality goes from Marvel. And again, we've said, it's not that all these films have been absolutely awful. There's been some better ones and there's been some worse ones, but this one really did feel like it had a little bit more focus, a little bit more love, attention, and care on it, and it seemed to just be overall a better film. Now, and obviously, sadly, I couldn't make the show last week. I too was bored for very large chunks of this movie, and I feel the runtime was very bloated. It's got a saggy middle, Jammer. This film's got a saggy, bloated middle. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was a little bit disappointed with it overall, even though it's a great return to form, because of its runtime, because of its bloatedness, because of it took its time finding its feet, but when it did, I really, really enjoyed it. I love the grey area perspective of Namor and the Wakanda's position in the world, protecting itself and the rest of the world trying to steal its shit and then trying to pretend that they're the bad guys. It seems very relevant. We could have done without, as much as I love seeing the character's name, forgive me, the
Ironheart.
Martin Freeman's character.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. I think we could have done with, although I kind of like the fact that now we know that they used to be married. I thought that was a fun little note. We probably could have done without them at all. Probably didn't need any of those scenes at all, and probably could have still had a movie in there somewhere. But it is a good return to form. I thought Angela Bassett was fantastic. I thought the actress that plays Shuri, again, I'm terrible with names, I thought they did a great job. So again, it was being carried with some great acting, some great on-screen stuff. All the pretty explosions and stuff was good enough, but what was really pleasantly for me was a return to form from the quality of acting, writing it for big chunks of the movie, and so that's why it made it into my top 4. It's not a perfect movie. I'm not sure where I put it in my overall MCU 10, because we're only doing Phase 4, but from Phase 4, I think it's definitely one of the best for sure. Obviously, it's it's in my top 4. It's in my top 3 movies of Phase 4.
I think what you felt for the return to form was that it takes its own mythology seriously.
Okay, yeah.
Because it really does. Like, even though you have the more ridiculous things like Namor having wings for feet and stuff, like they just took it like this is part of the world, and we're making it serious, and we're respecting it. We're not undercutting it constantly.
They owned it. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's my top 3. Top 3 movie. I think people can tell by the list if they're still paying attention that is one of my top 3 movies from Phase 4.
And that's your top 4 for the all overall.
And that's my 4th one on this one. Yeah.
Great. Well, my number 3.
Top 3 time.
This was tough, and I feel like I might be illicit surprises here. 3, Spider-Man: No Way Home. I thought it was excellent overall. Really great movie. Had a lot of positive things. My criticism comes from it sloppy filmmaking. The scenes where the Spidey crew were hanging out on the scaffolding on the Statue of Liberty, that just felt lazy. It doesn't seem like there was any thought put into how the shots were done. It almost felt like it looks like an SNL skit. And even some of the lines between the characters feel like SNL skits, where it feels more like extended improv than it does actual dialogue curated to sort of push the story forward. So those are my biggest criticisms. Everything else about the movie I pretty much like. Oh, one more criticism. It makes no sense why Peter Parker would take Electro anywhere, because that guy so overtly wanted to kill everything. Why would you take him to freaking Happy's apartment? That was just crazy to me. But everything else I really liked. Like, I think the narrative arc that they send Peter on, his emotional journey, the death of Aunt May was handled superbly. And just how they managed to just address the complaints of so many people who complained about his version of the MCU, where it's like, oh, he's the Peter Parker who gets everything handed to him. He's Iron Man Jr., da 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 da. And now they've kind of had their cake and ate it too, where it's like, yeah, we have that version of him, but now he is the Peter Parker that he's poor. No one knows him. No one likes him. He's got no real support. He has less support. At least, the other Peters had Aunt May. He doesn't have Aunt May anymore. He's got nobody. He's worse off. So I'm interested to see what happens with him going forward. I think they just did a marvelous job of I don't know about bringing in fan feedback, but like incorporating and turning him into someone who is more recognizable in the comics. And it was just superb. But yeah, so really great movie.
Do you think, Jammer, that was intentional from when they had the trilogy planned, or was there not a trilogy planned and they were just doing it film by film as we move forwards? Or do you think that was to subvert it a little bit and say, yeah, we're going to have this Parker where he literally is given everything and then we're going to take it away from him rather than the other way around? Do you think that was intentional, or it's just that's how it played out?
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea, because I know there's a lot of flexibility in the MCU and how it's done. They have maybe basic ideas, but I think it's also planned out a lot less than we think. I think that what they're pretty good about is pivoting based on what came before and making it relatively cohesive. So I don't think they had a plan from the beginning, mostly because this was a movie that we didn't know was going to happen, because they wasn't even part of the original deal that Sony did. So
fair enough.
I don't think they would have had a plan.
Yeah.
Number 3, No Way Home.
Yep. Sorry, just taking a swig of water there for the listener, but obviously the viewer saw what I was doing and is very forgiving. My number 3, Loki. Loki is my number 3. Without a doubt, my favorite of the shows. For all the things that you've said, but I particularly just like watching Tom Hiddleston play this character. I think it's such a joy to watch. And then to have him play the character and have almost every character that he came up against or with or had any interaction with, any kind of interaction at all, was just wonderful. So they picked the actors to play alongside him, of course, with Owen Wilson being the main one, so well. It was just a joy to watch him on screen all the time, even when there were some bits of the stories that for me did drag on a little bit, they were a little bit slow. Overall, though, just to watch him in this character and to have fun with this character and to generally look like he enjoys playing Loki, it's a joy to watch. Very much like Benedict Cumberbatch. Just watching him as the character, just watching the actor play that character is a joy. And for me, that's why, as well as all the reasons that you listed yourself, Jammer, Loki is my top 3, and it's mostly to do with Tom Hiddleston as Loki. Long may he continue to be Loki.
Agreed.
Yeah.
All right. My number 2 is Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
Okay.
I think this movie is
Defend yourself.
pretty... Well, I agree with you. The last act is boring. Mostly. I think the action is boring. I do appreciate what happened between him and his father. I think that aspect works. So that redeems it a bit in my mind and helps me get over sort of the CG fest. And then plus I enjoyed some of the character moments within the fight, like seeing Trevor Slattery just play dead or fumble around in the fight and stuff. I thought that stuff was fun. The overall fight, it's nothing we haven't seen before. I think any Marvel origin story has just a lot of energy to it that others maybe just don't have. It's like there's sort of a freshness to them. And I think this one has that. They introduce a very sort of unique character, one that realistically doesn't make sense. Why this this character, this guy is so well adjusted living in San Francisco. Is it San Francisco? I think it's San Francisco.
Yep.
Well adjusted living in San Francisco, considering his upbringing. Doesn't make any sense. But you know what? Simu Liu is a really likable lead. He's great in everything he does, and he really brings just the charisma to this character to the point where, like, you know what? I don't care. Screw it. We'll go with it. And I love his dynamic with Aquafina and their bromance, so to speak, their platonic friendly relationship, which I think we don't see enough of in the MCU. It just felt fresh and fun, and I get like a lot of energy. Like I had a lot of energy coming out of that movie and throughout that movie. It was just such a joy to watch. And also another thing in the MCU, yes, they're known for actions, but I generally kind of zone out during a lot of fight scenes. For the most part, up until the last act, all the fight scenes were just fun and different in this one. They had like that sort of I guess that I'm not gonna pretend I know martial arts, but like, you know, the martial arts edge to them that most fights in the MCU don't have. And it just looked great, and it was just engaging, and I just am really stoked to see what they do with the character next. Like I have a lot of enthusiasm for what this character could bring to the MCU as a whole.
I agree, and that's why it was it was one of the top ones of the movies for sure. But my number two, slightly different to yours, obviously, from where this film was placed, is Black Widow.
Okay.
So we obviously now we figured out what my number one is, but I you know, as we've been talking, a lot of the films and the shows that you and I have enjoyed that are in the top five, around the top 5 to 6 or 7, have been based on the dynamic between the characters in the film, whether it's a partnership. And you yourself just mentioned there between the top two with Shang-Chi and what's her name, Aquafina. I can't remember
I don't remember her name either.
But it was their interaction, right? So for me, Black Widow, it was the interaction between the characters again, particularly with
Yelena.
With Yelena in there as well. I thought she is fantastic, and almost not that I'd forgotten that she was in Hawkeye, but it just made me. I remember now in Hawkeye, and her character in that was awesome, just like she was in Black Widow, and that was one of the reasons why I enjoyed Black Widow. It was great to be back at the movies again. It was great to be on the big screen again. I enjoyed that. I like to see all of those actors interacting with each other, particularly when they got to the cottage and they were having dinner together. I just enjoyed those interactions, and the action is what it is. The final action of them falling out of the sky forever, it reminded me of the awful James Bond film Die Another Day, where the aeroplane was falling apart for like 30 minutes. It was on fire for 30 minutes, and they were fighting on this plane that was on fire for 30 minutes. Or the awful Fast and Furious film where it's the longest runway in the world, where that plane's taking off from, and it must be about a 10-mile long runway or something like that. That fall from the sky was just, okay, it looks pretty, but this is nonsense. But I forgave it because all the interactions between the main characters in Black Widow, I just really enjoyed. And like you said, it starts off not like a Marvel film. This is pretty grim. And that just helped to just set the tone for it. Not that it was a grim movie, but just this is serious. This is where they come from. This is how kids can be manipulated and altered and changed, and how they can become these amazing assassins with no soul, etc. The downside for me was Taskmaster. Like you, I don't have much of a knowledge of the character, but I would like to have seen more of how she adapts and modifies and takes on board the skills and abilities of the others. It was kind of just taken for granted a little bit, like we were meant to know that's what she was doing, and I'd like to have seen that a little bit more. But it didn't take me out of the film. I just enjoyed the interactions between all the main casts, and I would love to see them again. And obviously, for obvious reasons, I won't be able to. But I love that film. From memory, I enjoyed it a lot. I saw it 3 times when it came out. May have been because it was returning to the big screen. Maybe because I'm in love with Yelena. I'm not really sure, but it's definitely my favourite, bar one of the Phase 4 films.
I mean, I'm not mad about hearing your number 2. I think that movie gets a lot of flack. People say, like, oh, it's mediocre. I don't think it's mediocre. I think it's pretty fucking good, personally.
Yeah.
And I like that falling out of the sky fight. It reminds me of like something like Metal Gear Solid that you would see in Metal Gear Solid, or
really
ridiculous like that. Yeah, like, it seems like something Hideo Kojima would put in his game for no reason. It's just stupid and silly and over the top. So I'm like, I'm totally all for it. Like I wasn't bored. Was it ridiculous? Yeah, but whatever. You know, it's a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. They got to have that set piece at the end, and as long as I'm not bored during it, I'm fine.
Yeah. I think we've just been given, before we go for our number ones, which I think obviously everybody knows is, we've just been given Jonesy's list, his top 15. Did you have a quick scan at it, Jammer?
I did. Let's wait till the end.
In the chat.
Let's wait till the end to talk about it.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just going to say, I think Kyle might have reprinted it wrong. I think where you've got the two films with the word black in front, Kyle, I think actually Jonesy had swapped those round. I'm pretty sure he agrees with me. I'm pretty sure.
I think that's it. That sounds about right. We'll talk about that later.
Go on, number one.
My number one, WandaVision. I think there's something to be said by having shorter episodes for these shows. Like I said, the saggy middle, and I feel like sometimes they almost feel obligated to go to 45 minutes to 50 minutes for these episodes, and it just doesn't work. WandaVision to me was just like, all right, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe a 40-minute. I don't remember specifically, but I like their willingness to take advantage of the medium and make it different, because like, hey, it's streaming, we could do whatever we want, so we'll go ahead and do whatever we want. Each episode was like interesting. The first couple were like unsettling, had a little air of mystery surrounding it. What's happening? We don't know. And then really unraveled from there into some like one of the most emotional arcs I think in the MCU to date. And I think I remember like one of my favorite lines was Vision talking to Wanda and talking about grief, and it's like, what is it if it's not love persevering? And I just think that is like one of the greatest lines ever. And I will say the last action set piece, a bit sloppy. There are a couple of sloppy points to it, like it just kind of, the family kind of fighting together, it's not handled particularly well. There's that scene where Darcy comes in and like crashes into that one agent guy and then says, have fun in jail, and then we don't see her ever again. It's like they clearly didn't have a chance to finish probably an extra scene because of the pandemic. Right. And there are other things like that where it just kind of felt a little sloppy at the end. And you know, none of the mystery could have built up to what we wanted. But the problem I had with it was, I remember I was thinking, okay, clearly she created this world. And then they were like, oh, but she didn't. It was Agatha all along. Oh, wait, no, she created this world. And so it was like a fake out where it's like the thing that it was obviously, no, it's not, but it is. And I'm like, I wish it was, no, it's not that. No, it's not that. It's something else that we couldn't foresee. I wish they had done that. But overall, on an emotional level, I think it's so strong that it's my number one. So yeah, WandaVision is my number one.
All right. Well, obviously you're entitled to opinion, even when it's wrong. And that's absolutely fine. Well, my number one, no surprise then, because I haven't mentioned it yet, is Spider-Man No Way Home. I just feel that for all the things that you've mentioned before, and we don't need to drag this show on too much now, it really did for me, just made me really enjoy being back at the movies again. I love the fact that it ended with Peter. It sounds horrible, but I love the fact that he ended up with nothing. And I thought that they did that really well. Even just, and I had the pleasure again of watching it again. It was only the second time I watched it, but it was very recent when they launched the added extra bits.
How was that?
Well, here's the thing, right? Because it's strange. I really enjoyed it when it came out. I would have been happy to watch it more than once more, and I never got a chance to. So when they did release this new version with the extra stuff in it, I was like, you know what? I am super excited now because it's been a while since I saw it. I saw it opening weekend, and I really enjoyed it again, which is, again, it's fresh in my mind, whereas some of the shows and movies we've talked about are a bit distant. I've enjoyed listening to you tonight because it's reminded me of some of the stuff that was in them, which is why I'd love to revisit the list again. But this film is, again, fresh in my mind. The extra bits, a lot of the extra bits were them talking together up on the
scaffold.
I was going to say the Eiffel Tower, but it's not, the Statue of Liberty. So the bits that you kind of maybe didn't enjoy so much, there was more of that. And it's interesting you say that because it was more of them standing around just shooting the shit, having an SNL skit. And it was kind of fun. You're right in the sense that it doesn't seem to fit, though, and it didn't seem to be as natural as they were hoping it would be. I think some of the more natural conversations they were having was when they were first introduced to each other early in the film, when they were working on their separate bits in the lab and all that kind of stuff. When she says Peter and they all say yes, and that kind of felt more natural. These guys chatting together, although what they were saying was funny, it did feel a bit forced. But overall, I really enjoyed this film. It was great to see Marvel really return to form on this one. And I think it's what's helped me from Phase 4's perspective still have faith that Phase 5 and Phase 6 will give me something to really look forward to and to really enjoy. All is not lost because of films like this and Wakanda Forever. They have got their mojo again. Plus, there's some great new directors and stuff in the films and shows that we've just talked about. I still have faith, and I won't say in the Feige thing, but Phase 4 has not been without its blunders, without its wobbles. But films like Spider-Man No Way Home and shows like Loki and for the stuff that you just mentioned too, there's still life in this old dog yet. So bring on Phase 5. I'm still super excited for it. And so I end with Spider-Man No Way Home being my number one because it shows us what Marvel can do when they're having fun. So bring me Phase 5. What do we got?
One thing I like about that I didn't mention is Andrew Garfield in No Way Home. I think he was a revelation because honestly, he wasn't really like his character in the Amazing Spider-Man movies. It was very much like a very meta character, but because no one liked his movies, they made him sort of like the underdog hero, the one who's like had no confidence in himself. Even though objectively, like he probably is the character that would have the most confidence of the three of them, based on his character in the other two movies. I just thought that was really funny, and I think it really showed another side of him, his comedic side as an actor, Andrew Garfield, and what he could bring to the table. And I would like to see more of these three interacting.
No,
in another movie.
Pipe down, you got a sore throat.
Get over it, Kyle. All right, so let's go ahead and let's reveal Jonesy's top 15, or I guess not top 15, his rankings. Number 15 for him, Eternals. Number 14, wait, I don't know if it's 15. Did he include Werewolf by Night?
He included What If, so you're gonna have to say 15.
Okay, so it's 15. Okay. Number 14, Ms. Marvel. He put in parentheses, I haven't seen all of this, but there's no way it's as bad as Eternals. Number 13, WandaVision. Number 12, Shang-Chi. Number 11, Moon Knight. Number 10, Doctor Strange. Number 9, She-Hulk. Number 8, Love and Thunder. Number 7, Hawkeye. Number 6, Black Widow. Number 5, What If? You're high, Jonesy. Number 4, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Number 3, Loki. Number 2, Black Panther. And number 1, Spider-Man No Way Home.
He meant Black Widow was number 2, but
my bad. Yeah, you're right. Black Widow was his number 2. And he has no power to correct us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there was a few things that were bang on next to mine, and a few things were bang on next to the list, and so yeah, it's fair. It's I don't know what to say about that ultimately because it's our opinions on these films.
The biggest surprise I had was What If being so high.
Yeah, me well. I don't know why. What If? Yeah, but I'm sure before you wrap things up, Jammer, I'm sure the listener and the viewer has things that they agree with us with, and things that they probably completely disagree with us with. And I would love to hear what they are. Whether you agree, I'd much rather hear whether you disagree, if I'm honest. So please join us on Discord and let us know what you think about our list, or my list particularly where I put Ms. Marvel above, or sorry, worse than Eternals, Jonesy. It can be worse, and it was. But we'd love to hear what you guys think, that you guys that have taken the time to listen all the way through to our number ones and or follow for the website. So we'd like to hear what you think as Jammer wraps this up. Keeping you up, Jammer. Busy day.
No, it's morning it's almost not morning, but basically morning. Okay, so any last things to say about the MCU before we kind of just move on to us just shooting the shit for a few minutes before we head out? No,
that's it. There's been some films in there that give me hope for Phase 5 can be better, and apparently we're going to get more about what the overall goal is for Phase 6. as things go on. So I'm looking forward to the holiday special with Guardians of the Galaxy, which is 1 week away. Didn't realize it was coming out that soon, but it's 1 week away.
Yeah, I should have waited. I should have waited. I was a fool. But it's okay. It's okay. So what was I going to say next? Oh yeah. So who watches? It's basically us talking about what we've been watching.
You want to do that? I thought we were going to wrap it up, but go ahead. I'm happy to keep talking.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I just have a couple things because I have to talk about a couple things. Enola Holmes came out on Netflix. We were going to cover it, but it just didn't work out. And I think it's a pretty fun movie. Enola Holmes was pretty, like, I'm not sure if it wasn't as good as the first one. I think it was a little bloated. Oh, you didn't see it yet, Danny? Okay. Well, if you like the first one, if you like the first one, I think you'll enjoy this one. I think it's a tad bloated, but it's still a good time. It has the Mission Impossible effect where I don't always understand how they went from A to B, but I don't care because it's just fun to watch.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so it's a good, fun action. I hesitate to call it a mystery because I feel like the mystery, while it's still a mystery, it's more of like an action fun piece than anything else. So yeah, good time. If you haven't watched it, it's probably the second best movie from Netflix behind Enola Holmes 1. So there you go. The other thing I've been watching, and maybe you'll appreciate this, Danny, Mythic Quest season 3 has just started. I've watched the first 3 episodes of it. No spoilers.
Oh, well, hold on. Sorry, Jammer. Sorry to stop you again, buddy. I haven't started watching it yet, purely because, obviously, I was super stoked when it dropped, but we've just got my nephews to start watching Series 1, Series 2, and they haven't quite finished it yet. And we did promise that we wouldn't watch Series 3 until we could all watch it together. So I don't mean to cut you again just as you're about to talk about it, but I haven't seen the first 3 episodes, but I'm chomping at the bit because I love this show.
Well, do
you like it so far? Do you like it? Please tell me you do.
Yes.
Awesome.
I think it's the strongest first 3 episodes of any season so far that they've had.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It continues to be fantastic, continues to delve more into the characters. What I like about season 3 is it shows the characters in different circumstances. So it's like, the end of season 2 saw things kind of being like splintered in a way, and now we get to see them kind of in a different light, paired off in different ways, and I just think it's really fun how they do that and the different circumstances they find themselves in. 2 characters that I didn't really like at all in season 1. I liked more in season 2. I really like in season 3 were the two the game testers in the first season. Because in the first season, it kind of felt like it was pulled out of a web series. They weren't really doing anything. They were kind of sitting there and like, okay, we know you both like each other. Just do something. Stop being frustrating. And then season 2, I thought was better how they were incorporated into the main plot. And then here, I like that they're doing their own thing in season. Well, they're integrating more into the rest of the plot more, and I think it's just fun. So I love what they're doing with the characters, and it continues to build on the strong foundation of seasons 1 and 2.
Brilliant. I really do look forward to that, and my nephews are loving it too. So it's been a joy to watch the seasons again, anyway, because they're great. So it's not a problem. He said that I am chomping at the bit to watch the 3 episodes that have dropped. So that's pretty cool. I've obviously been catching up with Andor this week. I'll let we got other shows on the network, which I'm sure you're going to cover what those other shows are, and they talk about this in a lot more detail. I've been enjoying that one, but I did finally end up watching Sandman on Netflix. Finally got to finish it. And once I started, because I only watched the first 3 episodes and then stopped for whatever reasons. But as soon as I put on episode 4, I just plowed through the lot. I loved this show. I thought it was a beautifully shot. I thought for a TV show on a property that's not exactly widely known to the general public, they clearly cared a lot about it and cared enough about it to put some money into it to have the effects look as good as they did. But also the storyline that was thread through, the acting throughout it was fantastic. And some of the episodes were just mind-numbing. Not too much detail. The episode set in the cafe. Can you remember it, Jammer? The episode set in the diner.
I haven't watched Sandman.
Oh, okay. Well, listen, no spoilers then, but there's an episode that is solely set in a diner, which is both brutal but beautiful all at the same time, about the abuse of powers and things like that and human nature. Bizarre, brutal, but wonderful. So I've been happily watching Sandman this week.
I've been hesitant to watch Sandman because I'm afraid of being bored. Is it boring at all?
I didn't find it boring, and I'm not familiar with the property, but I could see how there were a couple of episodes that may drag, but because it was so nice to look at, it kept me glued in that sense. So you may find parts of it boring plot wise, but it's visually shot wonderfully, and the acting's stupendous. So give it a shot, Jammer. Even if you just get that episode that's set in a diner, it's wonderful. But give it a shot.
Okay.
Give it a shot.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I definitely will. And that and Andor, I've watched the first episode so far.
Okay.
So I haven't kept up with that. But everyone seems to be saying great things about it. I watched, like I said, the first episode. I thought it was great. I just haven't watched more of it yet.
No, that's fair.
Can't wait to get to it. I've been hearing amazing things.
Yep, and I know they talk about it on the Cantina a lot, and obviously producer Carl and Cam have more to say about it, much more steeped in the Star Wars lore. So check out their show if you want to hear more about Andor from that perspective. But I've been enjoying it for sure.
Well, that's all I have to say. So, dear listener, let me see if I can slow this down a bit, because producer Kyle can... I'm not sure how he's able to close it out. He's gone from his seat, his throne. So hopefully he'll be able to close us out. Make sure you subscribe to us at the Genreverse Podcast Network YouTube channel, as well as on any podcast app that you are using. We're available across the board on all of them. So wherever podcasts are found, you will be able to find us there. We have many different shows in addition to this one. In addition to Breaking Geek Radio, you have Marvel Multiverse Mayhem. You have Anime-Versal Reviews, AVR Squared. You have Cup of Genre, and the Cantina. I think I said them all. I think I named all the shows. So yeah, definitely check out all of those offerings that we have. And again, on the YouTube channel, there's lots of fun reactions from Kyle and Kyle and company for your favorite anime series that you have going on. I know the Eminence in Shadow is sort of a big one.
Kyle and Mrs. Kyle. Isn't Mrs. Kyle on there?
Yes, she is.
She is. But yeah, like I know the Eminence in Shadow is like a big anime series that you're covering this season, and seem to be having a lot of fun with that. But that's all I have here for Breaking Geek Radio, the podcast. Hopefully you enjoyed our journey through Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and you'll join us in our very next episode next week. That's all I have to say. Danny, where can people find you?
This week you'll find me mostly riding my motorcycle because the weather here in Dubai is fantastic. So I'll be on the bike in the mountains. Good luck.
Fantastic. Kyle, where can people find you?
At that Kyle Malone on Twitter, and right here on like 90% of our shows.
And you can find me at Jam the Writer on Twitter, but maybe not for long, because who knows, Twitter might be imploding over the next week or so. You could also find me at AJ Cerna Writer on TikTok. That's right, I'm TikToking now. And like all the kids are doing, and I have really gray hair, so it's really hard to look at, but whatever. It's great. It's a fun time. That's probably where I'll be posting a lot of stuff going forward. Also check out my books under the name AJ Cerna on Amazon and Audible, as well as at magiabooks.com. Yeah, MAGIA books.com, where you can check out City of Mages. But thanks so much for listening. Hasta lasagna. Don't get a yanya. Mission accomplished. I'm doing it all.